Considering the sheer amount of books that I read, it's kind of like inevitable that some of them are going to be a dud, so we're going to talk about those ones today. Hi, it's Jade, and this is sort of the companion video to my top 10 favourite books of 2021, in that this is my top 10 worst books of 2021. Just like with the last one, the ones lower down this list are kind of interchangeable with each other. I find it even harder to rank these ones because you have a mixture of I didn't like them because they were forgettable and boring, and I didn't like them because they were just awful. And it's almost like when they're really, really bad, they have more of a lasting impact despite how much you hate them. And it's like, what's a worse crime? Something being bad or something being forgettable when it comes to media? So, I don't know, that's not the question that we're going to answer today. Instead, we're just going to rag on a couple of books. We're going to go backwards from 10 to 1, like we did in the last video. Hopefully, because I have them written down, because I don't have the physical stack of books, I will remember numbers this time, but I make no promises. The number 10 on my worst books of 2021 is Milkweed by Jerry Spinelli. I thought this book was very badly written, and it's one of those where it's like, I've read this story before, and I've read it done so much better before. It's about a young boy in the Jewish ghettos in Nazi Germany, sort of at the beginning of the war, and just waiting for my very loud neighbours to leave. Where was I? Oh yeah. But having read quite a few stories set in Nazi Germany or about just World War II, this one just fell very flat for me. If you want to read a book from a child's perspective during the war, I would recommend either The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas or Diary of a Young Girl. Obviously one of those is fictional, one of those is non-fictional, but this didn't do what it set out to do, I don't think. Number 9 was actually the first book I read in 2021, so we were starting off the year strong. And that was City of Broken Magic by Myra Bollander. As I said when I was talking about Sand in the Sands in my Best Books 2021 video, I really enjoy Steampunk, but there is a way of doing it that works and a way that doesn't. This one is Steampunk done wrong, in my opinion. It was really good concept for a book, but really bad execution. And all of the characters were really unlikable. And the main character that you were sort of in the mind of, you were reading it from her perspective, was on the one hand so judgmental of everyone she met that it was like, wow, you're just a bitch. And then on the other hand, so stupid that she'd, like, these judgments that she was making, you're like, what? Like, clearly that's not what's going on. Are you dumb? The answer is yes, apparently. But this is the first book in a series, and I have no intention of reading the rest of them. To be honest, I've forgotten most of the plot by this point. At number 8, this was an audiobook that I listened to, and it was Winterwood by Patrick Mcgabe. I struggle to... I'm going to struggle to give you a coherent synopsis of the plot, because there wasn't one that I could really see. It was just sort of a rambling mess. And, like, I think the whole thing was that the person whose perspective you're looking at is either a child killer or a child molester, and, like, I couldn't tell. But yeah, it was just rambling and weird, and I didn't understand what was happening. And the thing is, it's not like the language was so dense that it's a highly symbolic book and that maybe I'm just not smart enough to get it. I mean, that could be the thing. Maybe I'm just not smart enough to get it. But I don't think it was as deep as it was trying to be. That could be the main issue, is that it was trying to be deeper than it was and then failed to do anything. At number 7, the only one that I still have a physical copy of because I haven't yet unhauled it, it's on my unhaul pile, and that is Enders by Lisa Price. You may recognise kind of the cover because I read Starters by Lisa Price, which is the first one in this series, and really enjoyed it. And let's just say she did not stick the landing in this series whatsoever. This was technically a DNF. I got about halfway through, and no, it's one of those. It was so bad. I am now going to be unhauling Starters as well because it has ruined my appreciation of the first book in the series. It was that bad. And the thing is, she was a competent writer in the first book and seems to have forgotten how to write by the time the second book comes out. And I just... no. It was weirdly racist, and the whole concept of bodily autonomy that was very strong as a theme in the first book was completely shat all over in the second book by a character that I'm pretty sure we're supposed to like, but I didn't. At number 6, we have After Alice by Gregory Maguire. I had high expectations for this because I absolutely love Alice in Wonderland retellings. I have an entire shelf dedicated to retellings, and over half of it is Alice in Wonderland. So I was like, oh, another one to add to my collection. And then I got about halfway through and DNF'd it because, oh my god, was it boring. And it's really hard to enter the world of Wonderland and be boring. So, I mean, props to Gregory Maguire. You managed it. You managed to suck out all of the imagination and all of the whimsy and wonder that makes Wonderland so amazing, and the concept of Alice in Wonderland so amazing. And yeah. Okay, halfway through, at the number 5 spot, we have Solas by Gail Carragher. This is one of those weird ones in that on paper, this book should have been right up my alley. I should have really enjoyed the concept of Edwardian Victorian England with vampires and werewolves and all sorts of magical creatures in it, and having a main character whose literal lack of a soul means that all other mythical creatures lose their abilities around her. Sounds like a really good concept, right? And then you get into it and literally all you hear this woman moan about is her weight and the fact that she's half Italian and the fact that she has a large nose, and shut up. Oh my god. She was such an attempt at a strong female character in major quotation marks, because it's one of those where people think a strong female character is just a woman who can punch things. And yeah, she was just had no personality beyond the fact that she was a spinster, basically. So there are many more books in the series, but I am not going to be making that attempt. Okay, so the number 4 slot is potentially going to be quite controversial because everyone that I've spoken to about this book absolutely loved it, and I didn't. And it's one that I alluded to in my best books of 2021, in that it was just a major disappointment, and that is The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. Oh god. As I said in my best books of 2021, I love the story of the Iliad, specifically Achilles and Patroclus. So when my sister gave me this book and I learned that it was supposed to be a retelling of the Iliad from Briseis' perspective. Also, am I saying that right? Is it Briseis or Briseis? Because I've heard it said both ways, and I don't know, but I'm bad at pronouncing names anyway. That's what it was sold to me as. The tale of the Iliad from Briseis' perspective. We were going to get a voice of a character who is sort of lost through history and is normally just a side character in most retellings. It was going to give us the woman's perspective of what it was like to be a captive during the Battle of Troy. That's not what happened. I mean, I should pretend, like, it started off promising. Like, the first line in this book was something like, was Bracy saying that everyone calls Achilles, like, Golden Achilles, beautiful shining Achilles, but we just call him the Butcher. And then no other point in that book does she ever refer to him as anything other than beautiful shining golden Achilles. So it's like, you say you hate him, but you very clearly don't. And also, this wasn't Bracy's story. This was just the Iliad from a third person perspective. It was just the story of Achilles and the Battle of Troy from an outsider's perspective. At one point, I'm pretty sure it even flips so that we're no longer reading it from Bracy's perspective and we're getting Achilles' perspective now. And it was like, I wouldn't be complaining if I hadn't been told this is a feminist retelling of the Iliad from the women who are often silenced in history. And then I was reading it, I was like, but that's not what this is. This is not that story. This is just brutality for the sake of brutality, but it isn't giving them a voice. So, it suffices to say, despite the fact that I really like reading retellings of Greek mythology and, like, Greek historical fiction, I will not be picking up any more of Pat Barker's books. So, okay, so we're now in the top 3, and at number 3 was one that really disappointed me, considering how much I loved the Netflix adaptation of it. And I watched the Netflix adaptation first, and then I saw the book in a charity shop and was like, amazing, loved that show, need to get this. And that was Altered Carbon by Richard K. Morgan. And, like, I feel like I'm going to get hate for saying this, but it was literally just the nail in the coffin for me in reading sci-fi fantasy books written by middle-aged white men, because I'm just tired of it. I'm just tired of every female character being introduced tits first, and like with like a lengthy description of what they look like, whereas no male character is described in that way, and the like hypersexualization of them and the casual racism in this, and just it was also really, really boring. The bits that weren't infuriating me were really dull, and considering how action-packed and exciting the Netflix adaptation was, and people may think that I'm like being a hypocrite. People may think I'm being like a hypocrite because the Netflix adaptation of Altered Carbon had a lot of nudity, but the nudity in that was so matter-of-fact and so much of a, if we are in a universe where people can swap bodies, and especially the uber-rich just cycle through clones of themselves for thousands of years, the body as a vessel is what it will be. It will just become, well, this is just like a flesh sack now. And like and yet the first, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 chapters of this book, we just constantly get told how horny the main character is, and I'm like, it's not what I got in this for. I got in for the philosophy of immortality and how it will skew people's perceptions of what the worth of other human beings is. I don't give a shit that you're horny. This one, I feel like this one is a lot less coherent than the best of, because in the best of, all I did was just be like, this is amazing, synopsis of the book, whereas this I'm just there like, just shout random gripes you had with the book for a certain amount of time. At the number 2 spot is Clock Dance by Anne Tyler. This one, to be honest, I'm not even really sure why I decided to listen to it. I listened to it as an audiobook, because even reading the synopsis, it's like not necessarily something I would have gravitated towards. But I mean, I was trying to read more contemporary fiction last year, and that's what this is. And like, I thought going into it that it was going to be a story about a meek woman growing into herself and learning to, like, take no shit from anyone. That's not what happened. What we got was, like, 4 hours. It wasn't particularly long, thank God, but, like, 4 hours of a spineless doormat spouting casual racism and sexism and, like, very, very little plot. Like, literally, it was just, there's a woman and her life has basically passed her by, and that is the story. And it's just as thrilling as it sounds, aka not in any way. Oh god, okay, and at the number 1 spot, a book that, despite how short it is, I could very potentially make an entire video just, like, rant reviewing it, but then I'd have to probably get a copy of it again, and I just don't want to, is Forgive Me, Leonard Peacock by Matthew Quick. And Matthew Quick is the person who wrote Silver Linings Playbook, and I didn't enjoy that book. I didn't hate it, but it was like, I read it once, was like, meh, okay, the dude's a bit of a douche, and I don't think I ever want to read it again, but I didn't hate it. This book, literally the only reason I finished it was because it was about 200 pages long, and I think for that entire 200 pages, I was just filled with fury and annoyance, and because I read it whilst I was at my mum's house, she can attest to how many times I put this very short book down just to go, this character is awful and so annoying and I hate this, why am I still doing this to myself? So, like, to sort of try and structure maybe my points a bit more, if you go writing style, god awful. For some reason, Matthew Quick decided to start instituting footnotes into this book, and that's not something that I'm saying you can't do. I like books that are written in a slightly different style. Like, I like multimedia books, and Terry Pratchett puts footnotes in his books, and they're normally hilarious and they're just extra little tidbits. Whereas in this, the footnotes will take up often like half the page, and are basically just a paragraph that could have been in the main text, but instead you've been wrenched out of your immersion because you then have to find where this footnote is to read something that literally could have just followed on that sentence. And it was bizarre, and not in a good way. The main character of Leonard Peacock is a neckbeard arsehole who... Okay, just, like, I don't know if I could say spoil the plot, because he tells you in, like, the first page, and then continues to tell you every couple of pages the plot of the book, which is that Leonard Peacock is going to go to school and shoot his bully and then kill himself. So he's going to spend this last day on Earth like, hanging out and giving gifts to the 4 people that he considers friends. That is the plot of the book, which he then continues to remind you of, like I said, every couple of pages, that he's going to kill someone and then kill himself. So you think, okay, a character who has been bullied to the point where they are about to commit suicide. This is why I think this book rates so highly on, like, Goodreads and stuff, in that the subject matter means that people feel like they can't say negative things about it. But one, the 4 people that Leonard Peacock says are his friends are very clearly not his friends. They're people that he just thinks that he can get things out of. You have an old man who is his next door neighbour who just sort of puts up with him. You've got a boy that Leonard Peacock has projected his own, like, idealised version of, like, a savant musician onto, and then as soon as he goes and, like, on his last day on Earth, goes to make actual friendship with this guy, and then he realises that he's an actual human being, he's there like, oh, well, he's less interesting now, I don't care. The woman that he constantly slut shames and victim blames, who he has decided is, like, just a tease because she was nice to him once, but she won't sleep with him. Like, this is the kind of person we're dealing with. And the teacher who, you know, is just doing his fucking job. And it's like, through all of this, I'm like, I'm guessing what I'm supposed to be feeling is sad that this guy is about to end his life. but literally all I'm doing right now is just begging him to fucking get on with it so I can stop reading. And that sounds really awful, but also this character was so infuriatingly, like, just awful as a person that I was like, I don't care. Like, you keep alluding to this, like, awful thing that this person has put you through that has driven you to this, but right now, it's gonna have to be really fucking awful for me to give a shit. And then when we get to the reveal, you find out that yes, it was an awful thing that he went through, but the person who put him through it is just as much of a victim as him. And I was like, that doesn't make up for anything that I've just read. And like, if you want to read a book that deals with the issues and consequences of school shooters, read We Need to Talk About Kevin. If you want to read about the, like, mental issues that can arise from being a victim of childhood sexual assault, read A Little Life, which, whilst so much more graphic and so much more, like, heavy, does it in such a better way. And considering that is a book that some people call, like, classify as torture porn, which, like, I get, was it didn't feel offensive in the way that Forgive Me Leonard Peacock did. That is the main thing that I took away from this book, was that I was like, I am offended that you think that this is okay. So suffice to say, I didn't like that book, and I don't know how long I've just ranted on for, but anyway, that was a cheerful note to end on. Yeah. Let's hope that this year I don't get one that is that bad. I'm expecting that there probably will be enough for me to do a top 10 worst next year, but let's just hope I don't hit one that, like, makes me that angry. And if I do, maybe I'll make a rant review and try and monetize it. You never know. But on that note, my cat has been staring at me for, like, this entire video because he wants food. So I'm going to go feed him and read something decent. Oh yeah, I keep forgetting to do this because it just feels weirdly unnatural, but... And that... If you enjoyed this slightly bitchy and very salty video, please consider giving this a like and subscribe if you want to see more from me. Drop me a comment. Have I just ragged on any of your favourite books? Did you agree with me? Did you not? But, like, be respectful to each other in the comments. Everyone has different opinions. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.